But his story is somewhat reminiscent of some of the stories we're seeing right now in our country, because he came in with his 7 brothers and sisters and his mother, and they were all let into the country, but he wasn't. And the reason he wasn't let in was because he was disabled. And back in 1923, we did not let people into the United States of America who were disabled. So they detained him, and they sent him to a place called Staten Island, where he was going to get deported. But his family was able to get him an appeal. And his disability was that he had one arm. And he had lost his arm as a boy in Europe, playing with a World War I shell that hadn't exploded until he played with it, and then it blew up and he lost his arm. So he was able to get an appeal. He was actually technically separated from his family. They were let in. He was detained. They were going to ship him back. And he got an appeal. And the judge that heard his appeal had one arm also. And that was the only reason he was let in the country. So a little bit of shared humanity is the reason I'm here. So I'm the grandson of immigrants. I'm the son of a construction worker. He was an electrician. First in my family to go to college. I became a successful entrepreneur. I was the youngest CEO in the history of the New York Stock Exchange. Created thousands of jobs. Had an amazing career in the private sector, starting businesses. But about 10 years ago, my wife and I decided to dedicate the rest of our lives to public service. And my wife, April, is an amazing woman. She's had a terrific career. She helped start a nonprofit called Common Sense Media, which deals with media literacy in children. And I had the privilege of serving in the Congress since 2012, and now the amazing privilege of running to be your president. And so my life has been about getting things done, which is why increasingly my campaign slogan, and you might have heard it the other night on the debate stage, while I was fighting to get a word in edgewise. I felt like I was back in the streets of Jersey trying to just get my voice heard. But one of the things I've said a few times is what I believe, which is I don't think the American people need impossible promises. We need real solutions. I don't think what the American people need is more ideology, more partisanship, more gridlock. They actually need us to get things done. That's what we need to do more than anything else. One of the things that I think has happened to our amazing country in the last couple of decades is we haven't done the basic things we should have done to prepare our citizens and our communities and our country for a world that has changed dramatically. And it's changed because of technology, it's changed because of globalization, it's changing because of environmental issues. And a responsible society would have done things decades ago to improve public education because our kids aren't getting the education they need. A responsible society would have done things a long time ago to really reform college and career and technical training so that it's more affordable and it's more geared towards the skills that our young people need to succeed in the world we live in today. A responsible society a long time ago would have built infrastructure, reformed our immigration system, dealt with climate change, changed the fiscal trajectory of our country. But we haven't. Why? Because we're too busy fighting and we don't spend enough time doing. I think on all of these issues, on every single one of them, there's an opportunity to find common ground and make progress. And that's what we need in our next president. Someone who is committed to that in their soul. You know, people often ask me, what would I view as a successful presidency? And I say, listen, if I'm done being president after 8 years, and we get big things done on all those issues I just meant. We build infrastructure, we improve public education, we make college more affordable, we reform our immigration system, we do some real things to deal with climate change. And I don't get credit for any of them, I'm fine with that. Because all I want to do is get things done. Because I don't want to be your president just to be your president, I want to be your president to do the job. And the job involves finding common ground and making progress. Right? You can't believe bipartisanship or common ground or dirty words if you actually want to do things to help the American people. Which is why in my first 100 days, what I've committed to do is to put the full weight of my administration behind a couple of big ideas. National service, building infrastructure, improving the Affordable Care Act, passing comprehensive immigration reform, putting a price on carbon and using all the money to to give it back to the American people. Every one of these ideas is based on an existing bipartisan framework. And I think our next president should step forward in their first 100 days and say, I'm going to work on things where the American people broadly agree with each other and we can get them done. Because if we become that party, right, I think we're not only win every election, we'll be able to govern. And that's what the American people really need. So if any of you ever decide to run for president, you'll realize that one of the first things you have to do is write a book. I didn't know that. And so I wrote a book. I think we have copies here for everyone, do we? Yeah. So the title of the book is called The Right Answer. And it comes from an amazing speech that John F. Kennedy gave in 1958. He was a senator at the time. He wasn't the president yet. And he gave a speech in Baltimore, Maryland. And in this speech he said, we should not seek the Republican answer. We should not seek the Democratic answer. We should seek the right answer. And that really struck me. He went on to say, we shouldn't seek to fix blame for the problems of the past. In other words, stop pointing fingers. And then he went on to say, we should own our responsibility for our future as Americans, together. And that's really the theme of my campaign. And what was interesting about this speech is he gave it 4 weeks after something called Sputnik was launched. You all remember what Sputnik was? It was that rocket that the Soviet Union launched into space, and the American people were panicked. They thought they had lost their future. What did this mean? But great leaders like John Kennedy said, no, our future is ours to build, but we have to build it together. And I think we're at a similar moment. It's not one rocket, but it's tremendous change driven by technological innovation and globalization. And we need to respond to it together. And we can. And we can actually do things to help our citizens, help our young people, create the American dream for everyone, like I've lived, like so many of you have lived, and actually leave the world better than we found it, which I think is our most fundamental responsibility. And that's why I'm running for president. It's not about me. It's about getting things done for you and your kids, your grandkids, so that they have the life and the opportunities that I've had, and so many of us have had, because they deserve it. So thank you for having me.